Our event tonight called The Day After, Commercial Opportunities Following a Solution to the Cyprus Problem, for which we have three very distinguished guests and speakers. Thank you very much for coming today to Cold Brussels. My name is Keller, I'm a member of the Green Group, and I'm very happy to have the opportunity to open this debate. Unfortunately, I don't have the opportunity to stay to the very end, but I will use all the opportunities in the meantime. And as you can imagine, maybe we as Greens, and that of course includes me, don't always have had a very easy relationship, to private business, to anything that has to do with commerce and making profit and things, because one of our main concerns has always been that business doesn't ask for what is politically correct. And that often interferes with our environmental thinking, what is advisable, etc. But it is also this character trait which I think makes business sometimes a great opportunity, as we see in this case. Since business does not look at political animosities or century-old misunderstandings and enemyships, it just looks, well, not always, but very often it just looks as for a way how to make money. And this can, especially in the case of Cyprus, be very much of an opportunity, a chance even, to create profit, but also understanding between South and North, and especially also for a reunited island, then together as an island, with the rest of Europe, and especially with Turkey. Trade can play an ice-breaking role in overcoming language barriers, because money speaks the same language everywhere, and political frontiers as well. And it has done so in the past, for instance, when reaching over the Iron Curtain in the relationship to Eastern Europe, and it's doing so in at the moment, very limited way because of the limited possibilities in the intercommunal trade in Cyprus between the North and the South. And I think it can do even more so in a united Cyprus. And I think it's absolutely great that three experts, economists, have made the effort to calculate how much money it would actually take out. What would be the financial benefit of uniting the island, of uniting Cyprus? And they didn't just look at the numbers of Cyprus itself, but also on what benefit this would create for Turkey and for Greece. And the numbers that you have found are very astonishing. So if we look at it from a purely economical point of view, I don't see any reason why Cyprus is not united yet. That's quite astonishing as well. If we just look at it from the economical point of view, there seems to be no alternative to uniting the island. So I'm very delighted that you conducted these studies and that you also accepted our invitation today and to an event which is done jointly by the ALDE, by the Liberals and the Greens, which doesn't happen very often. And as you see, if we, the two groups, can unite even on commercial issues, then I see no reason for why North and South Cyprus could not do such a thing. And as a politician, I'm also very happy to take up this incentive from the private sector. So thank you very much, and I would like to give the floor to Fiona right away. Or did you? Yes. Özlem, you start first. Okay. Sorry, then there's a change in the program.
So I have to go there in order to... Dear distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, before I start my presentation, first of all, I would like to thanks to ALDE and Green Group, especially Mr. Graham Watson and Ms. Keller, that give us a chance and organize this event and that give us a chance to be here to present our studies. In my presentation, I am going to present the first report of the Day After Report series entitled Commercial Opportunities Following a Solution to the Cyprus Problem. As the title of our report suggests, this report is about the day after a solution, and it focuses on the long-term recurring business opportunities that will arise after a solution. So, before we made our analysis, we started to analyze how Greece and Turkey did. So, first of all, we analyzed the economic relationships between the Turkey and Greece after the rapprochement in 1990s in order to forecast the benefits of a solution in the Cyprus. After the rapprochement between Greece and Turkey, we know that it has led to a boom in commercial relations between the two countries, which these relationships has transformed Greece into one of the top 10 foreign investors in Turkey and has turned Turkey in one of the fastest growing markets for Greece, especially for tourism. And also, with the analysis of the rapprochement, we also analyze the current Cyprus relationships with Greece and Turkey, and also current macroeconomy of Cyprus, North and South. For our methodology, we take the growth rates in exports of goods and services between Turkey and Greece as an initial guide, as well as recent macroeconomic and sectoral trends in both parts of Cyprus. Maybe some believes that poor commercial relationship between the southern part of Cyprus and Turkey will be the case even after the solution. However, in order to test this pessimistic theory, we also examine the development of commercial and macroeconomic relationship between Turkey and Greece from 1996, which is the lowest point in relations, and the period after the rapprochement that began between the two countries from 1990. So, according to the analysis of the relationship between Greece and Turkey in terms of trade of goods, we found that, as you can see from the table, the trade in goods increased more than fourfold between 1996 to 2006. Okay. And we also analyzed the relationship between the trade and services, and during this period, we found that the trade and services followed a similar pattern of the trade in goods, and services trade rose by 36% per year between these periods on average. When we look at the transport trade, we can easily see that the transport trade rose 33%, and Greece transport revenue increased 32%. On the other hand, the Turkey's trans revenue increased to 36%. So on average, the transport rate between two countries rose by 33% per year during the 2006 and 2006. When we look at the travel market, we can easily see that there was an astonishing rate of increase in the travel market, which is, the rate is 275 on average per year. So, after we analyze the relationship between the Turkey and Greece after the rapprochement, how the economic relationship was between two countries, we started to analyze the benefits of this reunification of the island. So, and we also know that after the reunification, the economic relationship with Turkey will be huge, and because Turkey is a large market for goods and services with 70 million population and a huge amount of GDP. Despite the fact that Turkey does not recognize the Republic of Cyprus and does not allow Republic of Cyprus ships to enter its ports, there is a small amount of trade in goods currently between the southern part of Cyprus and Turkey. So when we look at the current relationship between them, we can see that there is a trade in goods, but in very small amounts. However, particularly since 2004, when the Republic of Cyprus joined the EU, the imports from Turkey have started to increase, and it will reach to approximately 6 million Cyprus pound. We use Cyprus pound during that period, sorry for that. And when we look at the North's commercial ties with Turkey, we can easily see that there is a strong relationship between the Turkey, because northern part of Cyprus can trade easily only with Turkey rather than other countries. And the main trade partner in terms of goods and services of northern part of Cyprus is the Turkey, especially after the decision of the European Court of Justice in 1994. The Turkey became the main partner, because before this decision, EU was the main export trading partner with a share of 73% of total exports in northern part of Cyprus. So, before I started to give the results of our analysis, I would like to mention that we pay particular attention to those sectors which have the most to gain from doing business with Turkey and from likely developments on the island after a solution. These sectors will be tourism, construction and real estate, tertiary education, accounting and legal services, and shipping, and many other synergies that I will present it to you later. Our aim is here to give Cypriots on the island an idea of the value of these opportunities in money terms, so we make projections for these key sectors. I think you can see this table, but I will provide you sector by sector the information. Sorry for that, because it's a big table and it's very, okay. As a result, as a summary, we found that after the rapprochement, the economic growth, the real GDP will be 283 million after the first year of the day after, and this will increase to the 3.9 billion in year 7, which approximately the solution will yield 1.8 billion average per year, billion euro per average per year in 7 years after the rapprochement. This is the amount of the peace dividend that will yield after the solution. And when we look at the when we analyze the sector by sector, we see that the GDP increases, from the annual average boost the economy amounts to, as I mentioned before, 283 million in first year, and it will reach to 3.9 billion euro in this 7th year, which is just over the 10% of the whole island GDP. This will give us an average 1.8 euro per year. Moreover, the peace dividend calculated could be almost doubled if important developments such as new businesses from the Baki-Ceyhan oil pipeline and the implementation of the Ankara Protocol are taken into account. Under this scenario of the average increase, exports of goods from United Cyprus to Turkey, and by forecasting a non-solution scenario, the average peace dividend for exports of goods to Turkey will be increased to, yield to 46 million per year. When we add the imports of goods from Turkey, which would also create an additional wealth and jobs in Cyprus, this dividend would rise to 160 million per year. However, we believe that the main benefits will come from the export of services, since the island economy depends on the service in the both parts of the country. The potential, and we believe that the potential for the export of services are huge. So the reunification will open up 2/3 of the island and will therefore attract new tourists from Turkey. And also, the full entry of the northern part of the island into the EU can be expected to attract even more tourists and students from Turkey and the Middle East. So, this, in terms of money, for our forecast, the annual average peace dividend of exports of services that amounts to 464 million euro, with the import of services it rises to 790 million euro on average per year. Given the importance of tourism and transport in overall services, we have also forecast these subsectors separately. Since the tourism market that already exists between the northern part of Cyprus and Turkey, we have therefore assumed a more moderate growth rate of the tourism sector, and we take it as a moderate rate, 30% per year. So according to our estimation, this would yield an annual average peace dividend of 385 million euro in tourism from Turkey. And when we look at the tourism from non-Turkey tourism, we also estimated that there will be an average increase. Average peace dividend will be 316 million euro per year. We believe that apart from Turkey, the unification of the island will be attractive to the visitors because of the many reasons. One, the Cyprus will provide greater variety of places to visit. There will be an improvement in the infrastructure, the rebuilding of the Varosha, and the coordinated redesign of the content of the touristic products will also attract the tourists from countries other than Turkey. And we also assess the benefits to domestic businesses that will result from the reunification. Apart from the relationship with the Turkey, we also analyze the benefits arise in the island. Apart from the rebuilding of Varosha, one of the most obvious sectors to benefit will be the construction and real estate. Because, firstly, the settlement involves restitution and/or compensation with respect to property, which will be a considerable wealth effect created for all Cypriots by this process. Secondly, the rebuilding of Varosha will also create an ongoing long-term benefit for the whole region of the reunited Famagusta. And thirdly, the settlement of the property issue will put all properties on an equal footing, which will not doubt attract considerably more local and foreign investment, especially in the north than currently. So, with the construction activity yielding an annual average peace dividend of 392 million euros and the real estate market yielding an annual average peace dividend of 155 million euros, and the total of this sector will yield 548 million euros to the Cyprus economy, unified Cyprus economy. When we look at the tertiary education, we also see there will be an annual peace dividend for each year, 162 million euro. And another sector is the accounting and legal services, especially in the southern part of Cyprus. This sector is really the most dynamic sectors in recent years because most of the businesses use Cyprus to invest in emerging markets in Eastern Europe from Cyprus. And we believe that after the unification, such kind of investors are likely to use Cyprus in order to invest in Turkey, especially after the solution when Cyprus will sign a double taxation agreement. So we believe that these services will be benefited by gaining 103 million euros in each year after the rapprochement. When we also consider the foreign direct investment, we believe that currently Cyprus, because of its status, because of the political risk, there has underperformed in FDI. So we believe that the reunification will attract more FDI, and our estimation was 184 million euro additional FDI after the rapprochement. I would like to also note that in calculating the peace dividend that I presented you before, we have only included the exports of goods and services to Turkey, not the whole market for goods and services. We would expect that the actual total peace dividend to be even higher for a number of reasons, because first, we have not taken into account in our main forecast the huge potential for transit and other services that arise from the Baku-Ceyhan oil pipeline. And also, we didn't consider the Ankara Protocol, which when the Ankara Protocol will be implemented, we believe that there will be a additional revenue because of the transits. And also, third, the large merchanting sector could also benefit if Cyprus sets itself up as an intermediary in the supply of goods to and from Turkey. So if we consider the shipping alternatives arising from Baku-Ceyhan oil pipeline and also Ankara Protocol, we believe that there will be an additional 1.8 billion euro increase in income apart to the 1.8 billion per year that we estimated. So, shortly, we believe that reunification at least will bring 1.8 billion euro extra income per year, which means that each family in the Cyprus will earn extra 5,500 euro per family, which is equivalent to the 20% of the average Greek Cypriot salary and 40% of average Turkish Cypriot salary, plus the potential 1.8 billion in shipping and also oil, and plus many other synergies. So I would like to give floor to Fiona to provide you the information about our day after two's report. Thank you very much. Thanks for your attention.
Let me echo Özlem's thanks to the ALDE group and the Green group for inviting us here today. I think in your programs it says I'm also a consultant to the UN, so just to emphasize, this is very much in my personal capacity that I'm speaking today. So in our first day after report, as Özlem explained, we looked at the immediate benefits to businesses as a result of essentially opening up trade with Turkey, and we took as a basis what had happened between Greece and Turkey after the earthquakes in 1999, when you started to see rapprochement between the two countries. But as Özlem indicated, we knew that we hadn't covered the whole story, if you like. So in the day after two, we looked at also the some of the post-settlement investment needs, which I'll go into in a moment. But in order to do that, first of all, I have to give you a couple of facts and figures. I've put facts in inverted commas because if you're involved in a Cyprus problem, you learn very fast that both sides of the island have different facts and different histories. So, but based on our research, this was the number we had for the population in 1974, 645,000 people. Approximately 18%, 82% split. As a result of the events, 162,000 Greek Cypriots were permanently displaced. I think there were more in the short term, and which approximates to around 40,000 homes. In those days, there were four people per household. And just as a little item, we estimated, we couldn't get the proper figures, but we estimated it was 4,000 homes in Varosha, the closed town of Varosha. Also, 48,000 Turkish Cypriots were displaced as a result, which approximates to around 12,000 homes. Why is that important? When we were looking at the territorial adjustment arrangements of Annan 3 and Annan 5, which were two of the scenarios we looked at, there were 51 locations which would be subject to territorial adjustment, which would imply, if you assume that all of those people had to move out, you would have to relocate around 48,000 people. So as I mentioned, we looked at the immediate investment needs. I emphasize we didn't look at longer-term investment needs like upgrading Famagusta to be compatible with the acquis. It was more to do with there's going to be dislocation as a result of the settlement, and there will be investment, people will be wanting to come and do up their properties and so on. And I put in must-haves, not nice-to-haves, because some of the estimates made at the time of the Annan plan really exaggerated what were the so-called needs of the solution. I finally saw the paper about a year ago, and it included mosques and churches and football pitches. This was part of the figure that was the necessary costs of a solution. So, make sure you know what people are talking about when they claim what a solution will cost. So we looked at 4 scenarios. We deliberately picked 2 that didn't have anything to do with the Annan plan, because you don't want to be accused of imposing the Annan plan on the Greek Cypriots. And in that scenario, we said, okay, let's assume all Greek Cypriots want to go back to their original homes, and all Turkish Cypriots who are living in Greek Cypriot homes want to stay, which has certain implications on what the net housing need would be. A second scenario is all Turkish Cypriots go back to the south, and all Greek Cypriots in Turkish Cypriot homes, which is a bigger number than you might think, would want to stay. And then 2 versions of Annan 3 and Annan 5. I put simplified version because actually if you read the provisions of both Annan 3 and Annan 5, they're terribly complicated, the property provisions. And there's still debate about what it really meant, and so we just simplified it so that they wouldn't have to get into those arguments. We also made a cautious assumption in terms of that we'd made this assumption because we were looking at public sector costs as well as private sector investment. We assumed that the government, i.e. either the federal government or the constituent state / federated unit governments, would build on state land new houses for all of those displaced as a result of territorial adjustment and the property provisions. Now, this wasn't the case in the Annan plan. Only the poorest people with no money at all would have a house given to them. But I'm sure as those of you who've been in government know better than I do, when you make assumptions about how much things are going to cost, you always underestimate. So I think it's a sort of our safety net, if you like. And like I say, we assumed the public sector took on the whole cost of new housing, which may or may not be the case. But as I say, it's our buffer, if you like, for unexpected costs. So I won't go into detail of all the 4 scenarios, but they're in the Day After 2 reports. But obviously they have slightly different implications on costs for each scenario. But the average is that the rehousing costs would be 4.4 billion, of which, if I can read this properly, 2.2 billion would be undertaken by the public sector. But if I've got that right, I think the other half is people, doing up their houses again. We also had a look. There was, as a result of territorial adjustments, there were thoughts about. We know at the time about, if you like, building through 3 new areas. You can debate whether you actually want to create that sort of ghetto, to be honest. But since we knew that this was in the thinking at the time, we looked at how much would it cost to, if you like, build 3 new satellite areas, and what infrastructure you would need. And we based that on what is the current usage per population of things like electricity, water, and it's a drought-ridden island. You probably need a water desalination plants and so on. So that came to 1.5 billion for what we were calling the 3 new villages. I'm going to skip that one because I made a mistake on that file. Varosha, we looked at as a separate case because people always ask about Varosha. Now I want to emphasize here that we didn't make any assumptions about what people do with their property in Varosha. We didn't say you should raise it to the ground and build it up again and build a nice new green environmental city, because we didn't want to make any assumptions about what people would do with their properties in Russia. It's a very politically very hot issue. So we just said, okay, they get their property back, they do it up, and so on, and how much would that cost? So that would come to 2.9 billion. Sorry, beg your pardon. The Russia infrastructure costs would be 1.3 billion, and then with the villages and the territorial adjustment areas, the total infrastructure costs would come to 2.9 billion. So the total housing and infrastructure spending as a result of both for Russia, rehousing, new restoring housing and so on would be 7.2 billion, of which 4.3 would be public sector. So then those were figures that obviously have an impact on GDP. So then we went back to our original day after one forecast and essentially fed those figures into a new forecast. So we had our forecast for day after one. For those of you who are economists, we did this on a value-added basis. So we had the gross figures, converted it to value-added, fed it into GDP, the GDP forecast, and came up with a new forecast, which at the time, when we produced this at the beginning of 2009, we were forecasting that the United Island would be the two parts of Cyprus would be 4.2% with the status quo and 9.3% in year one in the first year of a solution. Of course, we've now had a financial crisis, but it could still be that the differential between your non-solution growth rate and your solution growth rate will be the same. So it could be that you have a big growth rate, especially in the first year because of all of this moving around of people and housing and so on and so forth. For obvious reasons, construction benefits most, and I'm sure it's something that the Greens will worry about. How is that done? But there are knock-on benefits with electricity, gas and water, because that's all used to make houses, hotels and restaurants as a result of the tourism and so on. And the education forecast comes from the day after one. So our revised forecast was taking all of that into account. So not only the day after one, which was really more about trade with Turkey, but day after two, all of this construction and doing up your old house and things that's going to go on. We revised it up to 4 billion per year from 1.8 billion in the day after one. And then it would be 12,000 euros per family as opposed to 5.5. And this should create, I think over the whole period, the first 7 years, 33,000 new jobs, which would add 3 percentage points to the average GDP growth rate every year for the first few years. I won't go into too much detail about financing these, but we looked at financing in quite some detail in the report. Obviously, things might be different now, but at the end of this, if the public costs of 4.3 billion, there may be compensation costs on property. Now, the reason I said if compensation is done the dumb way, there are many ways that you can finance the compensation side of property without burdening the taxpayer, essentially. And it's really not the way to do it. It's just to issue bonds and get the taxpayer to pay for it. There's property of depressed value which will increase in value as soon as the title to that property is cleaned, in the jargon. So there are other ways to do it, and I hope that will be done that way. But in our particular forecast, that's what we assumed. So the sources of financing, I went to some lengths to try and forecast what Cyprus what Cyprus could get if it were split into two NUTS regions, which I'll talk about in a moment. There's obviously potentially IMF or World Bank money, although I think it was more on the guarantee side. European Investment Bank and the Council of Europe Development Bank have both lent quite considerable amount of money to the Republic of Cyprus. Then there's syndicated loans, but at the time, the Greek and Turkish banks were very well capitalized, and they actually ended up being one of their biggest sources of financing, as did the Cypriot banks, which are also very well capitalized. As I mentioned, because it's relevant for you, at the moment, as you probably know, Cyprus counts as one NUTS region, and if you calculate, it doesn't fall into the what used to be called the Objective 1, the convergence category. So if you split it into two, and this involved making estimates about what is GDP at PPS in the north, then it would qualify, although technically I think you have to have a population of 800,000 or something. But let's say if that was allowed to be, if that wasn't a barrier, then it could be worth, based on Irish examples and so on, and having a look at what had happened elsewhere, it could be worth perhaps 600 million, not per year, just in total. But it's an important consideration when the taxpayer might be called upon for many other things. So just to summarize, we had public investments of 4.3 billion, private investments of 2.9 billion, and just a thought for the future, that's a hell of a lot of GDP for a small island. So that there's even, you know, when we started these reports, everybody said, you know, that the general idea in Cyprus is that a solution is bad for business. And so our argument is, no, it's going to be good for business. And in fact, it might be too good for business in the sense of it will require some very good management. And I think the EU's role will be very, very important here. To help in fiscal management and so on. But as Praxula reminded me to point out, it could also, given the current financial crisis all over Europe, it could actually be what the leaders need at the moment is the knowledge that there'll be a boost for the solution. So I'll now hand to Praxula. Thank you.
Distinguished guests, allow me to thank you also on my behalf for being here, and a special thanks to Francesca Keller and Graham Watson of the Greens and the ALDE group, respectively, for organizing and hosting this event. And I will take the opportunity to comment on something that Francesca said at the beginning, that it's rare that the Greens and the Liberals organize an event together. So if Cyprus can unite the Greens and the Liberals in some events, then how can it not unite itself and the area? So while the focus of our first two reports were the economic benefits that would accrue to the Cypriots, to all the Cypriots, if there was a peaceful solution to the Cyprus problem that would unify the country and the economy, the focus of our third report was which and how many would be the economic benefits to the neighbors of Cyprus, of Turkey and Greece, if the country was reunited and the problem was placed into the past. And our approach, just to all throughout the three reports, is an opportunity cost approach, in the sense that what is the country, whether it is Cyprus in the first two reports or Turkey in the third report, what is the country in question missing with reference to the growth of its economy in the absence of a normalization of relations with its neighbor? So in the case of the third report, we use the approach of what is Turkey missing in terms of economic growth in the absence of a solution to the Cyprus problem. And allow me just to read the comment that the Secretary General of the United Nations made last week in his last report on Cyprus, when he said that there is no doubt that the overall peace dividend would be huge for Cyprus, Turkey, Greece, and the European Union. This should be our fourth report, ladies. The enormous potential in trade, tourism, transport, and financial services continues to be stifled by the protracted dispute. This is opportunity cost in the language of the economists. What is being missed by not moving forward to a solution? So in the case of Turkey, we looked at the impact that a solution in Cyprus would have on the economy of Turkey. And we found that the key sectors to benefit would be tourism, transportation, financial and business services, and to some extent, exports of goods. A short look at Turkey's macroeconomy. These figures are very slightly different from the figures that you see in our report because we have just updated them on the basis of the autumn economic forecast that came out on Monday, while the figures in our reports are based on the spring economic forecast. We have to mention that the reforms which were implemented in Turkey after the financial crisis of 2001 meant that the country was comparatively well prepared to confront the global financial and economic crisis, mostly because of the reform that was introduced at that time in the banking sector, which at the time of the crisis proved out to be a resilient one. So we see that Turkey managed to move out quickly of the recession with a 7.5% growth rate in 2010, with unemployment still high but dropping, relatively healthy situation in the fiscal sector, and with a rising current account, mainly because of the fact that growth in Turkey was driven by domestic demand rather than by external demand, given the worse situation in its partners. A look at the sectoral distribution of the economy in Turkey on the basis of 2008 national account figures shows that the key sector is manufacturing, with a more or less constant share, though recently it has been growing. Transport and storage coming second, trade third, slightly declining, construction and ownership of dwelling together at a constant ratio of 11%, financial intermediation fastly growing at a ratio and contribution of 10.6%, and agriculture gradually declining. So starting with our estimates, we looked first at the sector of tourism, and we made a comparison of the contribution of the sector to GDP in each of Turkey, Greece, Egypt, and Cyprus, neighboring countries. And we saw that the contribution of tourism to GDP creation in Turkey was only 3%, while in the case of Greece, that figure was near 5%. In the case of Egypt, it approached 6%, while in the case of Cyprus, it's over 10%. So we tried to estimate how many more tourists or how more revenue from tourism would Turkey gain if there is a solution to the Cyprus problem. And the approach we adopted, so that I don't confuse you with the figures, is the following. We looked at what was the increase in tourism flows between Turkey and Greece after the rapprochement period that was initiated in 1999 and to which Özlem and Fiona have referred to, after Papandreou and Ismail Cem, who were then the ministers of foreign affairs, approached each other and with their countries. So, we saw that increase in tourism, increase in revenue from tourism arising out of visits of Greeks to Turkey increased by 22 times, if you look at the last row, third cell, during the period of 2002 and 2006. So if we just assume that as a result of a second round of normalization of relations between Greece and Turkey, we will again witness an increase in tourism flows between the two countries, Greece and Turkey. And if we assume just a lower factor of 15, then that would mean that Turkey would receive additional revenue from tourism per year of around €1 billion, just from tourism increase from Greece. If you also look at travel flows from Cyprus, just by assuming that the number of Greek Cypriots, because Turkish Cypriots now do visit, Turkey. Recently, of course, Greek Cypriots are also visiting Turkey. But if we assume that with normalization, everybody would be free to move around and visit each other, if we assume that just the number of Greek Cypriots that are currently visiting Turkey would also be currently visiting Greece, would also be visiting Turkey, then Turkey would receive an additional 400 million per year in terms of tourism revenue from the Cypriots. And then we made this assumption, which is very reasonable, that if there is peace in the area as a whole, meaning Greece, Turkey, and Cyprus, would increase its attractiveness in the eyes of European and other visitors, in the sense that a tourist could spend 2 weeks visiting 5 or 6 days the whole of Cyprus, 5 or 6 days on the Greek islands, and then 5 or 6 or even more days, given the size of the country, going around Turkey. So the area would gain an additional attractiveness to outside visitors if there was no political problem around and people could move around all the 3 countries easily. So by assuming just that tourism revenues to Turkey would increase by just 1 percentage point because of this global factor, we have 152 million more. So a total increase in revenue from tourism of around 1.5 billion. We also looked at the transport sector, and here it's obvious that the main thing that will happen once there is a solution, of course this could happen also earlier, but once there is a solution, Turkish ports to vessels and aircraft registered in Cyprus or whose last port of call was in Cyprus, this is phraseology used by the European Union, would open to these vessels. And we have estimated that this would create additional revenue, not just for Cyprus, but for Turkey itself, in the sense that ships that currently call at Cyprus ports would be free to call at Turkish ports, and there they will be using the facilities provided by Turkish ports and would be used also for exports or imports of Turkey itself. I don't want to bother you with the figures, but the PowerPoint presentation is available. We took ratios of loads and unloads in Cyprus ports in the south in relation to loads and unloads in ports in Turkey. And it shows that if this business could move also to the ports of Turkey, because we are talking about the 3rd largest fleet in the European Union, ships under Cyprus flag are the third largest fleet in the European Union. And in addition to that, you have it's around 2,000 ships under the Cyprus flag and nearly 5,000 ships that call at Cyprus ports in the south. If this business could move also to the ports in Turkey, this could create a great amount of revenue for the Turkish economy itself, which amounts to a total of €1 billion. The table is available in the PowerPoint presentation. On top of that, we looked at transit revenue. Transit revenue is part of transport and has to do with the the revenue that countries gain by charging transit, let's say, taxes on pipelines that pass through their country to carry gas or oil. This is a map of the Washington Institute for Near East. It's based on 2006 facts, so not all the pipelines are there, but we have included it in our report to examine a specific pipeline that is of direct relevance to our calculations. But before moving to that, it's obvious that energy provides a great opportunity for the growth of the economy of Turkey, not just because of Cyprus. Turkey is at the gateway of the Middle East, the Caucasus, and Central Asia, and can become a vital energy hub and strategic player in the region in that respect. By looking just at the Blue Stream 2 proposal, and this we have chosen because it affects the area specifically, it's the line going from Samsun to Ceyhan, vertical line down Turkey to the Mediterranean. Since it's obvious that this pipeline cannot really materialize unless political relations in the area normalize, so unless relations of Turkey with the whole of Cyprus normalize, and of course to some extent with Israel now, then one could attribute the income, the transit income that Turkey would gain from this particular pipeline to the solution of Cyprus. And by using data that relate to transit rates with reference to other pipelines per million of cubic meters, we arrived at the figure that Turkey would gain around 0.4 billion euro per year by charging transit revenue just on Blue Stream 2 once it materializes. But most of the growth is expected to obtain from the financial services. Though, as we saw at the beginning, financial intermediation is the fourth largest sector in Turkey, and it is fastly growing. Most of the business is generated domestically. Exports of financial services only amount to 0.6 billion out of a total of 17.3 billion of value added created by the sector. And with the peaceful unification of Cyprus in a manner that will enable the application of the European Union acquis to the whole of Cyprus, Turkish banks will be in a position to broaden their base in the European Union market through the setting up of branches or subsidiaries in Cyprus, given, of course, licensing by the Central Bank of Federal Cyprus of the time. And it will give the opportunity to the sector to increase its revenue from exports of financial services. Again, I wouldn't want to confuse you with the numbers, but if you see at the first cell, in the case of Cyprus, exports of financial services account for 61% of the total value added created by the sector for the country, while in the case of Turkey, exports of financial services only account for 3.3% of total value creation in the sector. So there is a lot of scope for that sector to add to the revenue of exports for the country. So it's 19 times less in Turkey in proportional terms. If we adjust this for the openness of the two economies and reduce it to 10 times less and apply this 10-time factor to what is currently the level of exports of the financial services sector, then we arrive at an estimate of an increase of 5.6 billion of exports of financial services by Turkey once it can use normal relations with Cyprus as a gateway to the European Union for its own financial sector. We tried to do a similar analysis for business services, but the data available didn't provide the necessary breakdown that we needed. But if one only, it's obvious that looking at the balance of payments of Turkey, that exports of business services are effectively zero now. So if we only assume that through normalization, through normalization of relations with Cyprus, Turkey could enjoy at least the 1.4 billion of exports of business services that Cyprus, a much smaller economy, enjoys, and add this to the 5.6 billion, we come out with an amount of 7 billion of additional revenue from the sector of financial and business services that Turkey would gain per year once there is normalization of relations with Cyprus. So what I have said so far has to do with additional economic growth per year once there is a solution. We also looked, this was mostly done by Fiona and Özlem, we also looked at savings having to do with property claims, with the financing of the budget of the Turkish Cypriots in the north, and with savings concerning military expenditure. And in estimating property claims, in the sense that if there is no solution, then Turkey would have to compensate everybody that had, let's say, property in the north. And by taking the lowest estimate, not the estimate on the basis of decisions that were made by the European Court of Human Rights, but the much lower figures that have been that refer to cases that were settled at the Property Commission in the North, without saying that which is right or wrong, but for the purpose of our estimates, it was safer to use a lower estimate, not to be accused of overblowing the savings. So this would mean a total liability of 24 billion. If you use the European law of human rights, it's a figure around 80 billion, if I remember, Fiona. Yes, but we use the 24 billion, which if you spread this over a 10-year period, it gives 2.4 billion of savings per year. On top of that, Turkey finances the economy of the north in terms of grants and loans by around 0.5 billion per year, the public sector in the north. And it spends around 2.2 billion, this not partly for keeping its military force in Cyprus, and also in guarding the Aegean. We looked at data of military expenditure from the NATO webpage. And on the basis of data given there, and making an assumption, though geography shows that the Aegean is about 1/3, let's say, of the total borders of Turkey, we just assume that Turkey would save 1/5 of its total military expenditure if there is a full normalization of relations with Greece once the Cyprus problem is solved. So they would not need to spend that money against each other, and there would be similar savings for Greece, even more for Greece, plus the savings in Cyprus of keeping a military force in Cyprus, This would yield a total of savings in terms of military spending of 2.2 billion per year. So total savings in terms of poverty compensation, budgetary support and military spending come up to 5.1 billion. Our third report was mostly focused on Turkey. We also approached the economy of Greece in some areas, though not doing this detailed approach, but using the same rationale. Starting with tourism, we have arrived at the conclusion that Greece could gain additional revenue, additional tourism revenue from tourism of around 110 million annually, additional revenue from transit revenue if the normalization of relations between Greece and Turkey would lead to cooperation also in the pipeline sector. Of course, there will be a huge increase of 2.3 billion, as we saw in the previous slide, in terms of military expenditure. Here again, we took the NATO figures and assumed that 1/3 of military expenditure of Greece is more or less devoted to the Aegean. So 2.3 million could be saved if there is a complete normalization of relations in the area. And shipping, of course, though we didn't give a number to it, it's something that we should look up in a further study, would also gain in Greece, given that ships that currently call at Greek ports would eventually be able, and then coming to Cyprus and now not being able to visit Turkey, would be able to call also at Turkish ports. So the type of business that would like to make the full round and now is not approaching Greek ports because it cannot do this now, would add itself to the current business that Greece is facing. But the greatest impact, both for Greece and also for Turkey and for Cyprus, as we saw in the previous reports, has to do with FDI. Of course, now we are in the period of a crisis, but funds are looking for certainty more than ever. And once there is a solution of the problem, the area would be one of the most safe areas, given that, okay, Greece has its problems, but it's now on its way to go out of them. Turkey didn't actually get that much stuck because it had implemented the reforms before, and Cyprus is not very much affected. And we saw that Cyprus has a very high attractiveness of FDI in relation to Greece and Turkey. So by applying the attractiveness factor of FDI to Turkey and Greece, rather than going into the figures, we come up with an expected increase in annual FDI to Turkey of 33 billion, and an additional increase in annual FDI to Greece of around 20 billion. So, given that there is profit to be made out of a solution, perhaps what is really needed is to create awareness, both among the people, but also to have leaders who are visionary and can pursue this target. And we have noted with satisfaction some recent statements that have been made, first by Prime Minister Erdogan, when he said that it is time to stop investing in military equipment and start investing in people. And by Prime Minister Papandreou, when he said that political will is what is at need for the attainment of an agreement for the reunification of Cyprus and for the normalization of relations between Greece and Turkey. I have read the quote, the recent quote of the Secretary General about the benefits to be made out of a solution for all concerned. So this is actually what we have done, the three ladies, is to quantify the profit to be made by all concerned so as to facilitate all the leaders involved in the solution of this problem to decide to respond to the opportunity call rather than shy away and allow their societies to bear the opportunity cost of not moving ahead. In essence, we have estimated the profit that can be made when peace is allowed to build bridges of prosperity across countries. Thank you very much.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. One from the north of the island, one from the south, one from the UK, 3 lady economists and 3 very powerful reports about the benefits of a reunification of Cyprus. The figures that struck me were adding 3% to GDP growth every year, making Greek Cypriot families 20% wealthier, Turkish Cypriot families 40% wealthier, and all of that based on very conservative assumptions in the calculations that have been made. You have in your dossiers today copies of the 3 reports. There are also some available in hardback as well, if you'd like to pick them up. But the reason that Ska Keller and I wanted to bring the 3 lady economists here is that there is clear evidence of a huge peace dividend from a solution to the island's problems. Their reports have already received wide acclaim on the island, and we felt it appropriate to bring them to Brussels at a time when intensive efforts are being made to solve the Cyprus problem. They show the benefits to Cyprus, north and south, the benefits to Greece, the benefits to Turkey, and the benefits to the whole of the Eastern Mediterranean. And if we think back to when we built the European Union was built on one fundamental equation, and that was the exchange of mutual suspicion for the pursuit of mutual enrichment. The question posed for Turkey and for Greece and for Cyprus is, can the economics of a solution trump the politics of the solution? And can we bring Cyprus forward, turning the Cyprus problem into what has to be considered the Cyprus opportunity? It's over to you. Time for your questions to our 3 presenters today. Andrew Duff.
Well, I'd like to thank our 3 for their interesting and intensive presentations. Could I ask you what reaction there has been to the publication of the reports, and what are you doing to promote, to prosecute the idea of a peace dividend in the places where it really does matter? It certainly matters here in Brussels, but also in Greece, Turkey and Cyprus on each side of the Green Line.
Attempted then. Of course, there could be more publicity in Cyprus to what we have done. I mean, our main concern is that, in fact, there was no criticism, but no publicity, not much publicity at the beginning, which this shows that perhaps it was so good news that some of the media didn't want to give attention to. But there are 2 sides to this. To start with, at the launch events, we had great attendance. All 3 launch events were forwarded by the representative of the Secretary General of the United Nations in Cyprus, and they were different at each stage. It's 1 year. We have received an award last year by Stelios Hadjiouannou, the prominent businessman who is active abroad, about when he inaugurated a competition about cooperation of businesses between the two communities. And we were amongst the first to be awarded this award. It was the first time that Stelios Hadjiouannou was given this award. But it's obvious that good messages in Cyprus need greater publicity. And this is something that is also mentioned by the Secretary General in his recent report. We would be very glad to hear criticism if something was wrong, if something in our approach proved to be not right, or our methodologies. But we didn't get any criticism in terms of the approach. It's just that we saw that there was not as much, perhaps, publicity as one would give it, given the figures, even negative publicity to criticize. So this shows that perhaps climate is not very conducive to positive messages, given the long time during which the problem has remained unresolved. That's why we believe that this report, with its results, gives ammunition to the leaders, all the leaders involved in this equation, to go forward and inform the people about the benefits that are awaiting both all the Cypriots and their neighbors out of the resolution of this long-term problem. I'm sorry, Fiona and Özlem, if you would like to add something.
I think I'd like to differentiate between what was the reaction with the first report and then the second and then the third. When we published the first report, it was 2 or 3 weeks after the election. Even though we'd prepared it in the time of Papadopoulos, it was published just after Christofias had been elected, and there was a lot of optimism and hope that there'd be we'd have a swift resolution, if you like, of the Cyprus problem. Of course, by the time we did the third one in July, the negotiations had been, if you count the preparatory phase, had been underway for more than 2 years, and so there's been gradually more cynicism, if you like. But it's also a message for us that it is a lesson for us, that it is a message that you just keep needing to repeat over and over again. And this is why, we keep churning out these reports. But it's a message that in the kind of, I'm not negating what Praxoula said, in the sort of environments in Cyprus, it's very, very difficult to put out positive messages because the atmosphere is not conducive. But you keep having, we do our best.
I was thinking to tell the same thing with Fiona, so there's nothing left to add.
Sorry, Grant, can I just come back? And in Turkey, have you directed your findings to Turks? Because I find in Ankara that there's a failure to always to grasp the nature of the prize.
I will be very specific in my response to you, Andrew. We have an open invitation from Cypriot Center at Culture University in Istanbul to go and present the findings of our 3 reports, but they lack funding. So we're in search of funding to go and present in Istanbul. But there is willingness by Culture University in Istanbul to host, organize an event for us there.
Praxoula, you presented a report to the Prime Minister of Turkey.
Thank you
forgot to mention this, so which is going directly to the decision makers.
Going to the very
Thank
top.
you, Özlem. Just yes, a note on what Özlem has said. A group of Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots met with Prime Minister Erdogan last February. I had the opportunity and honor to be in that group. And during that meeting, I had the opportunity to hand over to the Prime Minister, including what we didn't mention, the translation of our first report. It was translated in both Greek and Turkish. So I handed over to him the Greek translation, the Turkish translation of our first report about the economic benefits of a solution in Cyprus. At the moment I was handing them to him, there was a smile on his face. I have this in a photo, so this is a good sign. Thank you, Salam, for this.
Let's take a question from Chris Davis.
It's not a question, it's just a comment, a reflection, perhaps on Andrew's things. I keep thinking it would be very much in Israel's interests to start direct trade with Gaza, but the politics gets in the way. And pretty obviously from your presentations, it would be very much in everyone's economic interests to pursue this agenda, but politics gets in the way.
Question here, in fact, two questions, two ladies, one and two. Let's take two or three together, please.
First of all, I would like to thank all of the ladies, as also female related with these issues from Turkey. I would like to ask all of these estimated figures, especially regarding Turkey, are they estimated by considering Turkey is going to be a member of the EU or not? Because when the normalization of Cyprus, the Cyprus issue in the island, Cyprus as a whole island and Greece are going to be members of the EU, and Turkey, if it is considered in that sense, because the gains of Turkish business would be drastically different if Turkey is going to be a member, especially in services sector. And also I would like to mention, make a comment. We all know that in the island, main concerns, especially Greek Cypriots, are on economic sense, while coming together with, living together with Turkish Cypriots. So I think, as far as I know, Turkish side is aware of economic gains, not only on Cyprus, also in the region. But the Greek Cypriot part, why and how you couldn't publicize there while they have such concerns? Not only politics, people, Greek Cypriot people have economic concerns that we all know. So it would be good opportunity to also publicize it more, I think, in the island. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's take a question from the lady behind as well. We'll gather two or three together.
I can speak in French or only in English?
I'm sorry, but we have no interpretation, so in English would be better for most of our guests.
I have a question. I see here a lot of information from the government, the Greek government and Turkey government and Cyprus government, but I never see an opinion on a search about that Greek and Turkish population in Cyprus. I never see it what they want. And I think that is a very important aspect of this problem, you know. I never see in TV, I never heard about it. So it's good that I know what the government they want, but what the population they want. I mean, the Greek and Turkish, the Turkey population, they lived on Cyprus before the occupation with the army from Turkey, you know. So I think it's very important to give us information what the Greek and Turkish population they want.
Thank you. Is there a third question for me to take in this round? Yes, please, sir. Thanks. The question is whether the analysis will be submitted into a journal for peer review by other economists. Who'd like to go first in the answers? Muslim.
I would like to answer the first questions of the lady. Our estimations related with the Turkey is not based on the membership, EU membership of the Turkey. It's based on the reunification of the island will bring a peace in the region. So how Turkey will benefit with this stable atmosphere, and what will be the economic benefits accrue to Turkey. And we also mention in the report that the reunification will also ease the accession process of the Turkey, and we believe that if there will be an accession, there will be much more huge economic benefits than we estimated. Our estimation is only based on the, energy opportunity, the pipelines, the transit revenues, and also FDI, the increase in the FDI into the Turkey, and also because of the savings of the property issue, military issue, and also subsidizing of the northern part of economy. So it's not based on the EU member of becoming to the Turkey becoming to the EU member. The second questions of you concerning regarding the concern of the economic cost. For our reports, especially in the first two reports, we compare the situation after the economic benefits of the solution with the current de facto situation. And we also expressing that, okay, the unification will have a cost, but the benefits will, the huge benefits will compensate this cost. So at the end, the whole Cyprus will gain actually rather than lose. So we are trying to give this message and convince the people by using the facts and figures and to comparing the reunification under the scenario of reunification with the de facto situation. So regarding the Greek and Turkish Cypriots really once, I think you want to answer it or? Okay, Fiona. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Özlem, for this. Just to add on what Özlem has said concerning the Greek Cypriots, as you said, there is a misconception when we are talking about the cost of a solution. Many people were including the cost of a solution, all the investment that has to be done in infrastructure, what Fiona was talking about in the second report, to bring up infrastructure to the level that needs to, let's say, in the area of Varosha, which has been derelict for so long, to rebuild the houses, to build houses for people where there is a need. So investment in infrastructure creates economic growth. It's not a dead cost. So we believe that there was misconception in previous years about what a cost is. A large part of the cost that people thought it was a cost is an investment in infrastructure that creates growth. The other thing, it's true that people thought, and this is where the media comes in, and this is where, also Andrew Duff is right, that we need more publicity about the benefits. People took it for granted, because this is what media were saying, that it would cost a lot. But if we take the example just of tourism and the hoteliers, the Greek Cypriot hoteliers in Limassol and Paphos, they were being wrongly misled to believe that if there is a solution, there will be no tourism, our hotels will remain empty, all the tourism would flow in the north. In practice, it proved, unfortunately, that the hotels remained empty without a solution. So, if there is proper information, people are not to blame wherever you are. Leaders have the responsibility, and the media, unfortunately, and here is the private sector, have greater responsibility, if there are positive messages, to give them out. So if people were better informed that there was profit to be made out of a solution, that the hotels of the hoteliers would fill up with, as we come out with these results, that tourism would grow for the whole of Cyprus if there is a solution. So if people knew that our hotels would be full with the solution, they would be in favor. So there is a problem of misinformation that has to be addressed. And it's not just a government issue, it's a media issue as well. And it's also, okay, a generation issue. We have a new generation now in Cyprus, and people are just disinterested, but that's another issue. Sorry, Fiona.
Just to answer the question on peer review, actually we've never discussed it, but partly I think because as one report finished we moved on to the next and then the next, but I think because the positive thing about our reports is it's very, very clear what all of our assumptions are. So I think, you know, we're not scared of peer review if that's what we chose to do. To answer the population, what the population wants, in fact, there have been a series of polls which are available on, I think the website is called www.cypruspolls, all one word, .org. And it's run by it's a team called Cyprus 2015, which is involved, has a link with Interpeace, if you know who Interpeace are. And they've done extensive polling on both sides of the island on what kind of, not only what is the ideal situation for both sides, but what's much more interesting is what would be tolerable. So, for example, you ask Greek Cypriots what kind of solution, you know, would you prefer a unitary state or a divided island or a bizonal bicommunal federation? Of course, they say unitary state, and of course the Turkish Cypriots say two states. But then you say, what about a bizonal bicommunal federation with political equality, etc., etc.? And you can see that you would get let's say a tolerable majority on both sides. And then queries, so for an awful lot of areas, in fact, it's no prizes in guessing where it's most difficult to get if you like, a decent majority is on the security issue and the some aspects of the property issue. So there's no surprises for guessing. You know, if you ask Greek Cypriots, should the Turkish army leave, 98% say yes, and 98% of Turkish Cypriots say no. So, but there's a lot of information out there, and this is being, you know, that I know that the leaders are being kept very well informed of these opinion polls. So.
Just a note on peer review. We need to mention, as Lem mentioned it at the beginning, these are reports that have been published by PRIO, the Norwegian Peace Institute in Oslo. So perhaps it's up to them to submit the reports for a peer review, but it's something that could be taken up with them.
As far as we know, they've not been contested. Now, I know there's a reception waiting for us outside, but is there one or two last questions before we go? Yes, please, sir. Any others to follow the gentleman? Oh, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. It's not a question, but a very small remark maybe. My name is Ümit Şahin. I'm from the Green Party of Turkey, the spokesperson of the Green Party of Turkey. I really appreciate this approach to the Cyprus question. It's very interesting and important. Also, I think it should be heard more in the Turkish society. Especially the military spending part is really crucial. Only one green remark from our side, maybe you two take it into account in the next chapter or next volume of this. Maybe it can be, the Green New Deal approach can be added to this trading part, because, you know, Cyprus is a really sunny area. It's a good opportunity for solar energy, and it's also a good opportunity for isolation and everything about these construction things. It's really important instead of oil drilling, because I was not very happy to see this oil drilling part as an opportunity, as a green. So I just want to add this small remark. Thank you.
Thank you. There was another question, I believe, somewhere on the back. No? Yes, please.
Well, yes, again, from the Turkish Green Party, we had a delegation here today. So thank you for your quite detailed economic rationale, and it is very good to hear. And I had a follow-up question on one regard. Did you do any work on intermediary solutions on the way, such as the lifting of the boycott on the north and any economic benefit that might bring into the equation? And you also mentioned that you did not hear much skepticism along the way. Well, if I may make a remark of skepticism, it is very important that this data is out there to be discussed in the pathway to a solution, but the fundamental problem and I must also say that I am a native of northern Cyprus. So the fundamental problem I see from inside is that Turkey's relationship with the island has never been based on an economic rationale. Rather, it was always a strategic rationality, and Turkey has always approached Cyprus as a strategic asset. So, and it continues to do so. Rather than seeing it more of a military strategic asset, now it is more of an asset of compromise over membership in the EU, and the real incentive to solve the Cyprus issue is going to be a true membership perspective for Turkey. And since it's not an economic rationale but a political one, that's going to be where the solution is going to come from. Well, thank you for listening too.
Who'd like to go first?
I think economic rationales can become political rationales. I understand that in Turkey there are some voices starting to say, how come we're spending, we're poorer per head than the Turkish Cypriots, and we're pouring, it was what, $700 billion US dollars, like $700 million US dollars last year, and rising every year. How come we're sending life support to these guys who drive nicer cars than we do? So I think there can be a way in which the economy does affect the politics. But obviously, I also think I would say it might even be dangerous to say the only way in which Turkey would really be serious to help solve the Cyprus problem would be if it has. If you like, a guarantee of EU membership, because we know there's never going to be a guarantee. But from the way Davutoglu talks, at least, I think he's serious about no problems with neighbours and so on, and it's a pain in the neck anyway. The Cyprus problem is a hindrance for Turkey in any case. And one of the arguments we made in the report was, even if you don't actually join the EU, just the fact that the energy chapter hasn't been opened. So it's more to do with the course of the negotiations. It's probably holding back energy investment as well. So.
If I could just add a comment on this. First, to answer your first question, we didn't do studies in other scenarios. Our studies are focused on solution scenario, what would the benefits for all involved be if there is a solution, versus the current status quo. We didn't study other scenario. That could be something for someone else to do. And concerning the second leg, we mustn't forget that the Cyprus problem is with us for decades. So even Turkey itself, through these decades, it's let's say other governments that were there at the beginning, other governments that are here at the end, in all countries involved. So we should see that things are changing. And I think the focus, of course, we are the researchers, but the focus of the politicians should be to look ahead rather than to stay immersed in the past and exploit whatever opportunities are there for the benefit of their people. It is the responsibility of the current governments, whether it wasn't the responsibility of the current governments, whatever happened, it's the responsibility of the current governments to work in a way that would yield benefit to their people from now on. So it's a challenge to the current leaders throughout the area to be courageous and move ahead. And this is food for thought and arguments in their hands to do it.
Thank you very much. I think that brings us to a very nice end. I'm very pleased to invite you to join us for a drink outside and to hope there will be many more opportunities, not only for the Liberal group and the Green group to do things together, but many more opportunities to discuss what can be done with Cyprus, because we have to get a solution. Ladies, thank you very much for a superb presentation. Thank you all for coming and sharing it with us.